Good day, I'm Mike James, and this is the answer to a question more than a dozen people have asked me in forums and with emails. Can you put an RX 480 in a Dell XPS 8700? Now, I'm not going to make you wait through the whole video, but I do really hope you watch the whole video, because the answer is yes, but it's not quite as easy as you might think. There are a couple caveats. It's not terrible, but there are some significant caveats that I want you to be aware of before you do. It's not a bad thing. It's just something you need to be aware of. And no, we're not talking about any power draw thing. So hang on tight. We're coming right at you. It can be done. Let's talk just a brief minute about the launch of the RX 480. Do you remember back a month or so ago at Compatict? Here's a real quick couple pieces of the Compatict announcement.
And what you're going to see today is what we're doing with PC gaming, our vision for PC gaming, and the set of products that we have coming this year that are going to be very, very disruptive to PC gaming. Majority of the gamers buy graphics between $100 to $300.
I told you it'd be quick. After that announcement, I got excited. I really did. Problem was, the entire internet exploded. Every single tech channel I follow, and being a geek, I follow quite a few, was just overwhelmed with the RX 480.
RX 480.
RX 480.
RX 480.
RX 480. RX 480. RX 480. RX 480.
So, yeah, it was quite a repetitive month I've been through. One of the things I decided was to look and see, will the RX 480 work? And I looked around and nobody really had a clear answer, mostly because you could hardly get a card, and the people who got the cards generally were reviewers, and they were not using Dell XPS 8700s. Now, those of you who don't own an 8700 might not realize the reason for the problem is that when the 9700, or listen to me, the GTX 970 and 980 came out, they didn't work with the Dells. Even though the PCI 3 slot is perfectly compliant, everything looks like it should work, the BIOS was just crap. And it took months and months until they sent out a fix, and we all rejoiced. And that's why I was planning on getting a 970. My old GTX 660 that came out of a iBuyPower Revolt that I got a lemon. The computer was great, and I'm sure it works fine for most people. Mine, first the water block on the CPU started to leak and had to replace that. And yeah, I just bought a $50 or $60 water block, because that's all they cost, and fixed it myself, because I can't be without a PC for 3 weeks while they play around with it. And then 6 months later, power supply died. And I just said, that's enough. I'm done. I'm not doing that. And I took myself, went out and got a Dell XPS 8700 because I needed a computer for some work I was doing, and I just didn't have time to go to Newegg and Amazon and have things shipped and build it, and I couldn't wait 4 days. So I got an 8700 for about $650 on sale, which is a great deal. I took the memory out of my my previous computer, so I went from 8 gigs to 16 gigs for the memory, and I took the GTX 6600, threw it in there, and had a real good working PC. Now, if you're not familiar, the 8700 doesn't come with the greatest of graphics cards. Here's a picture of it, and yeah, that's not much. Let me show you with with the GTX 660 next to it. So, yeah, there's a little bit of a difference. And let's just say, I think it's a GT 720 NVIDIA card, but that thing is, oh my God. I mean, it'll do regular stuff. Grandma will be happy with it, but I can't believe you call that a gaming PC. You have to put everything basically down to low on most games for 1080p gaming. Now, when you're trying to decide what graphics card to upgrade to, with the Dell, it's a little more complicated. You got to be concerned, will it be compatible? I mean, you just look at all the graphics cards I have, and I've been through quite a number, and you can see I am completely agnostic when it comes to AMD or NVIDIA. I've got AMD cards here. I've got NVIDIA cards here. I've used lots of them over the years, and I just buy what's the good performing card for the price. So I decided, okay, we're going to try out the RX 480. I think it should be okay. I based that on a couple things. First of all, the GTX 1070s and 1080s had come out, and we had already confirmed that they do work. Someone was able to get their hands on one and verify that they do work. So I figured, well, the RX 480 is probably going to be okay. But I looked around, I couldn't find any information. But when they came out, I went on to the website called Now in Stock and set up an alarm. And as soon as that bad boy came in stock again, I missed the first wave because I wasn't waking up at 2 a.m. to get a graphics card. I figured they wouldn't be out of stock for the first day. Boy, was I wrong. However, a couple days later, I did manage to snag one. It was this XFX, whatever. 8GB version with a metal backplate. And that's what I wanted. I wanted the metal backplate. I like the look of it. I also like the protection it gives the PCB. And that was the one that was in stock. So that's the one I got. And great card. Took a while to get it. Got it about a week ago. And put it in the system. And there were some issues. Now, first of all, when you're getting an RX 480 for your Dell XPS 8700, make sure you have the latest BIOS. Previously, most people were recommending BIOS 10, but AMD actually came out a little more recently with BIOS A11. That's what I had upgraded to before ordering the card. Make sure that you have that new BIOS from Dell. It is always scary when you're updating your BIOS because you, in theory, could brick your machine. Don't just update BIOS because you want to. Only update it if you have a reason to. And it's a real I've been doing shows for 10 or 15 years. You think I could speak by now. Make sure that you're not in a lightning storm, and it's a real good idea to make sure your computer's hooked up to a UPS, battery backup. That way, if heaven forbid anything happens, your computer's still going to run and finish the BIOS update. It only takes a minute, but you don't want that minute to be the one where the power company decides you only need 5 volts every 10 minutes, and everything fades out. So make sure you have the upgraded BIOS. That's number one. Number two, you're going to have to upgrade your power supply. Or I should say, you should upgrade your power supply. In theory, the AMD RX 480 only draws about 10 watts more, allegedly. I know if you're thinking about this card, you've heard about all the power story. It draws too much power here. It's drawing 170, not 150 watts. But in theory, especially with the new patch that brings everything down into compliance, you probably could run it off the Dell power supply, but you'd be pretty close to the razor's edge, and I just honestly, I would strongly recommend you upgrade the power supply anyway, especially if you've had your computer more than a year or so. Those power supplies generally don't last long. I did go with a cheaper one. I went with a Corsair 550, but it's 550 watts, so it's about 100 watts more than the default, more than enough to run this graphics card. Or if I ended up getting a 1070, if they ever are actually in stock for a price under $450, you could do that too. So upgrade your power supply, and it's not hard. I would recommend, take a look at this one I got. It is the exact same size as the default power supply for the Dell. It's the reason I got it and I didn't go and get a much beefier one, because it only costs like $10, $20 more to get a beefier one in the mid-range power supply that I got. But this one's the exact size that the Dell is. Slots right in, no worries about clearance or anything like that. So you've got your BIOS updated, you've got your beefier power supply, hopefully. Now let me tell you about something that took me almost 8 hours of fighting and struggling and getting frustrated with after I put the power supply in, made sure that worked, deleted all the NVIDIA drivers. I even used that DDUD or whatever it is, the NVIDIA driver. It's a graphics card driver removal. It'll remove any graphics card drivers, but it's a real good idea so you don't leave crap from the previous card. And then I put the card in, made sure to plug in the 6-pin power connector, checked everything was perfect, turned the computer on, computer came on perfectly. But there was a problem. I couldn't install the AMD drivers. I tried, and I tried, and I downloaded this version. I downloaded that version. I even went and tried to use the version that was on the flippin' disk. Who uses the disks anymore? But I did that. Sometimes it would say it was installing a driver, and then it would say it would fail. Sometimes it would say it installed the driver successfully, but it still wouldn't work. Sometimes it wouldn't even show there was a display driver, and it just wanted to install an audio driver for the HDMI port. I was pulling my hair out. Then I discovered that other people were having this problem. Silly me, maybe I should have checked first. Currently, as of this video, the RX 480 doesn't support Windows 8. Let me repeat that. As of this recording, the RX 480 doesn't work on Windows 8. I did some research, and you can kind of deconstruct the driver, go in and actually manually edit how the driver installs, how I think it's an MSI file. You get the parts out and you can kind of trick your computer into working, but I'm not going to go through all that. The only reason I have Windows 8 and not Windows 7 on this is because that's what it came with the flipping machine, and I just didn't want to take my Windows 7 disk and try to fight with a Dell, the Dell pre-installed crap to make sure it would work. So I was going to upgrade to Windows 10 anyway. No, don't give me any crap about Windows 10. I know it's a pain in the butt, but I've got the spyware installed, the spyware remover that takes out a lot of the problems with Windows 10. And honestly, Windows 10 is a good operating system. I've been using it on my my laptop for about, 6 months now. So I knew it was a good operating system, and I use a Stardock's Start 10 or Start 8 or something that makes it look just like Windows 7 when I'm using it. So, I don't have any of that, I don't know what they call them, the Play-Doh tiles that Windows 10 has. I can get them by just selecting a key, and they pop right up and they go right away. So I don't have to look at them all the time. But so I upgraded to Windows 10. Really painless. I'd already downloaded onto a USB key because I was going to upgrade to it anyway. I just hadn't gotten around to it. And I knew I was running out of time for the free one. Allegedly, I don't know if they're really going to start charging after the end of July. They want people to use it. Windows took about an hour to convert over. Went smoothly. And as soon as I did, the drivers for the RX 480 worked perfectly. So those are your main things that you have to be aware of. BIOS, power supply, Windows 7 or Windows 10, no Windows 8. Other than that, the card has been working great. I've converted over from using the, Shadow Play on NVIDIA to using the Play TV and OBS to record my videos. I will be honest, Shadow Play is much, much simpler to use, but it's not that big a deal. I've been using OBS on the side anyway, and OBS is just a screen capture software. Most people that run on Twitch and do live streaming use OBS. And the Raptor Plays TV thing, it's a little full of itself, but it works fine. And so no problems there. I've been running a couple benchmarks. Here's a benchmark for Warhammer, And I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of benchmarks, but it really does perform very well. Keep in mind, I'm looking at this as a 1080p graphics card, not a 4K graphics card. It'll probably do okay if I upgrade to a, what are the 2K, you know, the widescreens, the 3600 by 1800 or whatever they are. It'll do okay there, but I won't be able to kick up the graphics settings as high if I want really great frame rates. But I'm running 1900 by 1200 right now, which I know is a little bit of an odd resolution, but I've had this Samsung monitor for a long time, and it's really great. It's got great response time, and I like the extra vertical space that the 1200 versus 1080 gives me. And I'm getting great frame rates, about double what I was getting before with my GTX 660, a little more than double, 20 or 30% more than double on some games. And it's got 8 gigabytes of video RAM, which will help a couple things that I've run into problems with. The video RAM was getting real close to the 2 gigabyte limit, and now I can get higher res textures and be fine. But I could tell you that the Dell XPS 8700, it works. It works well, and because it's a reference design, a lot of people are saying that you want to go ahead and wait for the aftermarket cards with the aftermarket coolers. But I will recommend right here that if you have a Dell XPS 8700, get the reference design. Yeah, you're not going to be overclocking it. I mean, mine came default overclocked by 80 megahertz or something. Woohoo! But it's a blower card. And it is exact same size as the GTX 660. I mean, it is within 1/8 of an inch of the size of the GTX 660, which is also a blower design. And while blower designs aren't optimal for cooling, they are optimal for keeping your case cool. And if you have a Dell XPS 8700, you know that it doesn't have a lot of cooling. It does good. I mean, it really, I've put an extra fan in mine, but I never turn it on because it doesn't need it. The Dell comes with one exhaust fan. That's right, I said one, and it's only like an 80 millimeter exhaust fan. I mean, it's not huge. However, between the power supply and that exhaust fan in the back, and the fact that you're using a blower style cooler on your graphics card, the system pulls in quite a bit of air through the front. There's a grill in the front where it comes in, and the side hole vents on the side. And the temperatures, I put in a front fan to help that front grill pull air through. And I can tell you, I turn that front fan on, and if I have to turn it up way, way high to see even a degree or two of difference on my GPU. So I just don't use it. It draws all the air in it needs. And with a blower design, you're going to stay nice and cool. I will advise you that if you don't get a reference design and you get one of those aftermarket cards where it blows a lot better on the heatsink, but all that hot air is going to go into your case, and you won't have the extra airflow out of the case that you get from the blower design. I think it's going to cause a little bit of a heat issue in your case, if you ask me. Not sure, but I'm pretty confident. Now, I've been showing you some pictures of my Dell and, the inside of my case. And yeah, the wires aren't pretty, but they are where they have to be based on the design. It's not a perfect design, but the airflow is amazing considering the limited number of fans. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. I'll try to answer them as quickly as I can. So, Dell XPS 8700 with the RX 480, it's an awesome combination for 1080p gaming, even though I'm a little above 1080p. If you've been concerned about it, don't. This graphics card works outstanding. The fan, now I'll show you the fan curve and everything I use. You can see I keep the fans low enough. Even that high setting, when under load, is 2500 or so is the highest it ever really gets. If you get above 2800, I can start to hear it. Now, if you crank it all the way up, it's like a leaf blower, but you don't need to. It's very quiet. I can barely hear it if I think about it. I think I hear the power supply fan a little more than I hear the graphics card. It's very quiet. It's nice. and it doesn't get loud even under benchmarking stresses. That's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. This is a little different than what I normally do. I normally do gaming videos primarily right now, Parkitect. So I'm not a big, review graphics card tech kind of guy. But I wanted to get this out there because there just weren't any videos or information I could find. So yes, it works. And until next time, I hope each and every one of you has a good one.